Voices Radio.
Voices Radio.
Voices
Radio.
Radio.
Hello and welcome to I Was Just Wondering with me, Tom Salmon, the show that dives into music, film and games and everything else in between. My guest on this week's show is the 3D designer and special effects artist Mathilda Mace, and you can listen to our conversation recorded live on Voices Radio right now. So, as always, I have 4 topics that I'd like to cover with you today, and the first topic is how to make a monster. So I'd like to go back to 2021 when you graduated from Ravensbourne University with a BFA in fashion, accessories and textiles. So how did that experience broaden your creative horizons?
So I actually, which some people don't know, a lot of people don't know, I actually dropped out. I did foundation and then I did first and second year, right. And then on the third year I dropped out. So I think like in terms of higher education it was necessary for me, but I also really benefited from dropping out. Right. And I wouldn't go back on it. It was something that I actually found changed my work for the better. Mm-hmm. But I definitely did enjoy my foundation year and my first and second year. So I have like pros and cons to say for it all, really. So
what was the tipping point for you that made you want to drop out?
I think it was like the third year. It was when everyone went into lockdown and I was just at home and I did like, so for my uni course it was textiles and like materials, and when going into that I thought it was going to be very much like more like accessory based, where I can make accessories around the body, like monster accessories and fun things like that. When I actually got there it was very much like, this is how to make a perfect bag, this is how to make a perfect shoe, this is how to make a basic hat. Yeah. So in terms of like creativity for me, it just wasn't there. So I just decided to, I think it went to lockdown in the third year and I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, you know, I'd much rather just be at home and kind of, I just decided to do it. It was like a risk that I was willing to take. So
you'd say for you, is it that the experience was too formal, too traditional in a sense?
I mean, I'm not like a hater of education. I actually really don't mind school. I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's not like I was not enjoying being under an educational, like, bit in an educational thing. It was more that, like, I knew that I was not producing the right work for me. And, like, it was just more that I knew that I was destined for something that I wasn't doing, and it was just that I'm wasting time and I'm wasting money, and like I'm not even getting the fun aspects out of uni, like social life, and which I don't even think is a big thing in London anyway, like social life at uni. So I think
Okay. So just following on from that, I read an interview you did with Kate Kidney Bishop for Covell magazine. I think that's how you pronounce that. And you talked about the transformative moment where you went from working on a flat surface to a full 3D environment. So could you talk me through that pivotal creative moment for you?
I'd say like it kind of stems from me being quite young. I mean, I think when I realised that the moment was like, it really was a moment, was like, I'd say, and in my A-levels when I started to do, so I was doing art and it was very much like painting, and I was doing like flat paintings and everything like that. And then when I started to tap into like ceramics, which is basically, I was really lucky, my school did 3D sculpting. So that was like my favourite subject ever, and I was just so like amazed that I could sculpt and actually do it as a A-level. So I think when I started to like learn how to do sculpting, and then I realised like art doesn't actually have to be flat.
Right.
In my art A level, I did I think the pivotal moment was in my art class actually.
Right.
And my teacher was like telling me to do all these paintings, and I love doing oil paintings, but then I was like, I really want to just like do makeup or make a costume or something. So I actually, for my art A level, I made a costume for my final art A level. Like I did this like walking tumour thing, which was like it was actually really funny. It was like because I was experimenting with like texture because I've always been really into textiles, and I basically got loads of condoms, and I like blew them up massive, and then I covered them in latex and popped them, and they became these like really amazing like shriveled bulbous weird textures. And then so that was like the first thing that my teacher was so confused about in art, but it was like really cool. And then I sewed them all to this costume, and then for my other A-level art project I made my friends I did drag makeup on all my friends, and then I styled them and I did photography, so it wasn't so much flat kind of since then. So I'd say from about school was the pivotal moment.
And I just want to jump into the software you use, because I think you use Blender to create your 3D works. And just following on from that, like, because I was thinking about it, and it was interesting to me, when you think typically of a fashion designer or fashion, typically it's designed like pen and paper on a flat piece of paper and the perspective's flipped. Whereas now we have the technology to realise something in a 360 view, which changes the material and how it actually like looks. So I guess that's part of a new generation of designers using something like Blender. So how did you go about learning Blender?
Well, actually how I went about it was I caught Corona on Christmas, and I'm like a really high functioning person, where if I don't have something to do, I'm like, my anxiety goes up. I'm like, what should I do in my life? Like I can't make. And basically I caught Corona around Christmas time, and I couldn't be dealing with my resin and my materials because it was bad for my health. And I was like literally stuck on the sofa for like 2 weeks. So I just decided to literally become like a Blender student on YouTube, and then I just taught myself Blender. And I think I was lucky enough at the time, it was when I just dropped out of uni and my Instagram started to like gain more followers for what I actually wanted to do. And I just managed to get like a few jobs doing Blender jobs, which was like I actually collaborated with this amazing artist Mutanta, and she was I was making the Blender molds for her. She sent them over to the Amazon, and they basically rubber tapper trees. And you basically like, I don't know how exactly it works. I think you like cut them a certain way, and you put a funnel in them, and latex comes out of the tree. So it's like a natural way of making latex. So I basically made these molds for her, and they were sent through Blender to the Amazon, where all of the locals were putting the latex in the molds. So that was like something that was so cool, because it was just, I just learnt Blender at home, and I was just grateful to do that. But to be honest, I faked it till I made it with the Blender. And I did it, so
I mean, just for people who don't know what Blender is, because obviously I do, you do, could you just talk a little bit about like a process of maybe making those molds from like scratch a little bit, so people actually understand like how you do that? So Blender is like a 3D software. It's the free version, because there's like Maya and other software. So it's the free software where you can essentially like make a 3D object with using different functions, and then you can like cut that object out of things. You can make perfectly geometrical patterns. It's like a computer aided design to make things that can be printed 3D, like a 3D printer. So and the process, do you know what, I haven't used Blender for like a year, so I can't remember, but I remember it was a lot of the pieces that I made were very sculpted, and it wasn't actually, Blender wasn't the right program for it. I needed to use like Rhino, which is more of a natural sculpt. Blender's really hard edge. So it was a lot of sculpting with my brush, which I really enjoyed, but it wasn't, I couldn't sink my teeth into it, you know? So and also just jumping back to you were saying about being more practical, in terms of using like foam and resin and clay, And I guess that the question is, in terms of those mediums, how do those mediums make you feel when you're like using them? What's the emotional, tactile response you have to those?
I would say, in terms of like emotion, I would say from the start using them, it's just the best thing for me is to be able to use a 3D substance. So, I mean, resin, I was using a lot in lockdown to make these like algae bags.
Yeah.
And that was something that kind of people were following me for at that time, but that was actually quite harmful for my health, so I tried to steer clear of that. I looked into getting a bio resin, and I got a bio resin which was okay. But in terms of like clay, I use foam clay, which is amazing. So it's like this foam, it's this clay that you can sculpt and then it dries, you can Dremel it, paint it. I just find like it makes my brain calm, being able to sculpt with my hands, like look at an object in 3D and create something that is 3D. Is just, I find it's like the easiest thing for me to do. Yeah, it's so much easier than reading a book. It's so much easier than even drawing. Yeah, it's just like my life really is to just make things and
I guess there's an instant feedback when you're using material like that. And I just want to pick up on the suit of armour that you made. So was that made for, how did you go about making that? Was it a resin or a clay?
Was this the one that you posted?
But it was the one that I posted,
well, that was actually, that armour was a self-inflicted passion project that I just did for myself, because I never do pieces like that for myself ever. I'm always working. So I had a job at a film industry company, and it was like taking up all my time. I was up 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. It was I mean, the film industry is mental. I have so much good to say, more good than bad, but it's hard graft. And I think I was doing that for like 6 months, and then I was just like, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take the risk, because I love taking a scary risk. It's like what drives my... I don't know why. It's like a weird, sick thing I like to do. But I took the risk and I was like, I'm going to just see what happens, because like design-wise, it's not enough working in the film industry. So then I just... Anyway, I'm digressing, but I left. I dropped out of that job. And then I was like, I'm just going to like reignite my creativity and make myself some armour. Yeah. So, and I've been wanting to make armour for ages, like Lord of the Rings style, like orc / like kind of like gruesome. And I just had all of these references from amazing films like Dracula. Yeah. And I just wanted to create something like purely for me. So that was just something that I made. It was out of foam, and then it was sculpted with clay, and then it was painted and rubbed, and hair was put in it, and it was just really fun. But it took me only 3 days.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So just nicely following on from that question, so your design and special effects work takes inspiration from a lot of different places. Pan's Labyrinth, Pinterest, mood boards, and sleep paralysis, I think you've mentioned as well. So what is the most frequent emotion that powers your creative drive? Is it that sense of risk? Yeah, I do definitely like to take a risk with my work. It's something that I really enjoy, not knowing what's around the corner. But I'd say emotion-wise, what drives my work is, I'd say dreams are like my spiritual side, and dreams and the like spiritual realm is something that really drives my passion and interest for like mythical creatures and transforming humans and morphing like reality with this other world. Yeah. So I'd say it's dreams. Okay. Really. Are you quite a vivid dreamer then? Yes. Yeah. I actually, I definitely have like crazy dreams. Okay. So I have some like that I always write down the worst ones on my phone, but they're just like, I always find when I wake up and I haven't dreamt, I'm really sad. Right. Because I love waking up, and then I'm like, because a dream for me is like a creative film. You're watching a film when you're asleep, and then you wake up and I'm like, wow, that's something I never saw before, and now I really want to make that. Not make that exactly, but I want to continue my path of like creation. Right. So yeah, I also have a sleep talking app because I sleep talk like a wild woman. Okay. So yeah, I'd say I'm very active in my sleep. Can we talk a little bit about sleep paralysis, because that's something I've suffered from in the past, and it's a very unusual / scary yet fun thing, and I know you've spoken previously about that. How has that sort of influenced you?
I'd say like sleep paralysis definitely was something that from a very young age like stuck with me, and I think it actually was what primarily inspired my like interest in dark characters and like being scared, and like because I find comfort in being scared, and I think it's a weird like response to when I was younger, years of being terrified because of this sleep paralysis. So it's a really weird thing, but I actually enjoy watching a scary film. And that's what kind of sparked my love for like dark things. So I'd say as much as sleep paralysis is terrifying, I can actually also benefit from it.
So with those previous questions in mind, I'd like to jump into October 2021 and into the creative process from start to finish of your Baby Krampus suit. So can you talk to me about your initial creative spark?
That was actually my second costume that I'd ever done. And it was initially my friend Zeal Friel is his Instagram handle, and he popped up to me being like, we'd love you to make us a costume like Krampus does OnlyFans. And I was just like, this is like hilarious, because my work's all about like sex but also like monsters and like my work's very that. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm so excited to do that. So I said yes, and then made mood boards, and I was working with a film company at the time. And it literally was something that took me about a week to make, and I'd already preempted everything on my drive up to work every day. So when it came to doing it, I was like so ready to go. And that was like my second costume, but I'd say my first successful one, because my first one was very much like learning. I was learning, and I loved it. It was so fun. We then went up to London and we shot it, and that's the costume that's kept progressing.
Yes, it's a famous costume. So for people who don't know what a Baby Krampus is, could you describe it?
Krampus is like this, I don't want to get it wrong, but it's this, I think it's this Christmas tradition in
it's Germany.
Yeah, it's Germany. I think where I think if you something to do with the Krampus coming down the fireplace, and he comes and I can't remember exactly. He punishes you like bad children or something. He comes down and he's basically this fawn character, this devil / fawn character with fawn legs and a devil upper body. So for my costume, I wanted to keep that element, but I also wanted to make it kind of sexy. So I cut I don't know if you've seen, but I cut the bum out in like the shape of a heart. And then all of the chest was out, the nipples were out. So it's this really like I found it quite tasteful, and there was a little nipple cover that was made from foam that had a bit of fur sticking out of it. So it's kind of like comical and camp, but also still I find it quite intimidating. Like a muscle suit is quite intimidating, and that's what I wanted to create. So it was really fun.
And that is a now famous costume, because it turned up in the FKA Twigs Thank You Song video, I believe. So how did that all come about?
So that was actually very last minute. I was because I was living in London last year. I was in my house in London, and they called me and they were like, we're doing Twigs's music video, and we'd love for the demon costume to be like well underway in there, but they wanted it to be sprayed black. So I had to do a really quick like job, like for like the whole night. I didn't sleep, making the shoes, the everything black. And then it was really fun. It was a really fun day, and it was a really fun thing to be part of, and also to see like Krampus part 2. Krampus turns into demon part 2, so it was nice.
It's interesting. The thing that I was thinking about is often like pop stars, when you see something like a Twigs video, it's definitely her word and her POV, but she has to take from other creators around her to build that out. So it's interesting how they can see something and they almost sort of select it like a director, and then it's then taken into their world and it becomes part of them. But it's interesting to talk about the journey of where that Krampus originally started from, because it's often overlooked. So I just want to
And it's nice to be part of such an amazing artist and brought into that.
Yeah, of course.
And it's nice that like big artists support smaller artists, and I'm fully for that. So
she's an amazing visionary and musician. So I just want to jump into the next topic, which is I'm dyslexic and that's all right. So it's a topic that's very close to my heart because I'm supremely dyslexic myself, and I know that's something you've spoken about in the past. So can you tell me about the first time you felt something was wrong or not clicking compared to you and your friends?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think like I never actually knew that I was. Sorry, I never knew I was until I got diagnosed when I was 16. Right. So I actually never even suspected. I never like thought to self-diagnose myself like something's wrong here, because I just kind of went through life, and I would never touch a book in my life. Like, don't touch a book. Like, I try now, but like in the past, I never ever touched a book because it would just go in one ear and completely out the other, no matter how interested I was in the book. And the same with comprehension. Anything English and questions with long questions or anything, completely gone. My short-term memory with my reading and my dyslexia is just like straight over my head. But I would say from about 16 was when I found out that I was had like severe dyslexia, and I was like, oh my god, like it makes sense. Yeah.
So in terms of your like friends and because I found with mine, I was very acutely aware of it because I was way underperforming at school, which created a gulf between me and the other kids. So how were your friends receptive to your dyslexia, or was it even like a particular issue at all?
Yeah. I wouldn't say my friends, because to be honest, when I got diagnosed, I went to this woman and she said that I went to the woman to get diagnosed, and she basically did a set of tests. You probably had the same, where it's like the tests, and then it's like I think like the highest test you get compared to the lowest test, and how big that gap is how severe it is, because your brain's not like on the right trajectory that it should be. And she did the pattern, the one with the patterns, where she basically laid out loads of patterns, and I had to make another pattern with tiny pieces. And apparently I was in like the top 1% of the world, of the I don't know what you say, but of doing that. And then my reading was like a 10-year-old, and I was like 17. So that's what kind of but she said that the reason why I haven't found I don't realise that I'm dyslexic until now is that my whole life I've used patterns to get through.
Interesting.
Like everything I've just seen it as a pattern, and so it's just my pattern memory. That's the only way I've been doing it. So it's really interesting. I was like, kind of found a way to deal with it through pattern. So it was.
It's like you learn through shapes, because that's what I find. If I don't understand something, I'll just learn the shape of it. That's it.
It was good to know though.
And I also just touching it, because most people, and I find this is a bit. I find it problematic because people refer to dyslexia as being like a superpower. And I find with me, this is my personal journey, it may be different for yours, but I find that a dyslexia for me is something I have to manage and kind of gets in the way. I have to find ways around it. I mean, I think in terms of my associative brain, it's helped me in some regards, more artistic.
In what way?
Like, I'd say in terms of my curiosity. In terms of being able to look at different things together and process that information and find a way like through it to sort of to put it in a concise way, I think, for me. So do you feel like it's a superpower to you still, or do you feel like no? I know it's something that I have, and I know it's something that I have to manage. Like we were speaking before, I just have to be very ordered and methodical when I'm doing things, because my neurons need to line up correctly, and it can be a bit of a push to try and get them to go in the right direction sometimes. So I know for me that my dyslexia has made me feel very alienated at times. Have you ever felt that way?
I think the way that, I definitely have. I feel sometimes like this pressure to have perfect academic opinions on certain topics that I really struggle to like understand.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I wish I could just come out with a more academic like way of speaking, even though like I actually know that that the world is about different thinking in different ways and thinking outside the box, and I know that like everyone's different, and I am like very intellectual in my own way, and actually I think like I've learned to just work with that and just understand that like I give something different, I look at things differently, and I'm not going to try and be this academic scholar, you know. And I think maybe if I was like that, I would be too uptight, and I wouldn't be able to just be me and say stuff wrong and like say when I'm wrong and use the wrong words and stutter like I always do. So
that's definitely something. I think speech, I guess pronunciation, I've made some absolute clangers on this show of people's like names, but it's just like, it's a different voice. If we're going to talk about, I guess, like diversity and neurodivergence and stuff, like you need to hear different voices. You need to hear people mispronounce, stutter, because if you just get locked into a very performative presentational style of communication,
it's so boring.
Yeah,
let's hear more of it. Like I actually don't care if someone said to me like if someone said to me, I always say this when I've got my friends around me, I'm like, if someone said to me, I feel really this, and then they did like a weird dance, or they said like a weird word that didn't make sense, I'd love it. Because it's like I don't know, I just really enjoy that element of like creative expression, rather than I feel really this exact word for, you know.
So also something I've been thinking about following along those lines, because I know from scientific research a person with dyslexia has a spikier brainwave pattern because their neurons are bouncing around looking for a connection. So subconsciously, do you think that's influenced your creative tastes at all? Like, and what I mean by that is our brains are more sticky to more extreme and weird experiences, and I think that you were saying you'll gravitate towards the darkness. So could you maybe sort of explore that a little bit, perhaps, about...
I mean, I definitely think in the terms of like spiky, the path that we take, I definitely think that like my brain works very up and down. It doesn't like, it does not like a schedule and one thing. It's like I'm always seeking to be like exhilarated from different things and different angles, and I'm always changing my room around. Like, if you know me, my bed's been on every single wall. Like, it's been in the middle of the room so you can walk around the whole thing. Like, it's been like everywhere, and it's because I just love change. Like, I actually say I've got kind of like commitment issues with my schedule, but I think like with the nature of my job, it's good because it is always changing, and I think I finally found a job that it is always testing me in different ways. So I would definitely say, like, I'm not sure if it is dyslexia, but I think it probably is. It's not being able to stay on a certain path, and I think like we were all born differently, and we should just go with what works best for us. So it brings me nicely onto topic 3 and working on set. So I just want to jump into you recently worked on a photo shoot with the former Playboy model Sarah McDaniel, aka Crotchety, and you turned her into a furry forest being. So how do you plan something like that? That was actually not planned. Well, no, it was we did it before. So I worked with Foxatron, which is the photographer, which is actually really funny because it was the Foxy shoot on with the photographer Foxatron. But we did a shoot together for someone, and it didn't come about. And it was the most I wish I could like say who it was for or show the images, but it didn't come to fruition. So then we just took it into our own. It was just a collab. It was just a self-driven passion project where we met up with Sarah, who's so lovely, and covered her. We did this, and we basically recreated the look that we did before again.
Right. Okay.
It was slightly adapted and everything, but I had like under 2 hours to do that whole thing, which was really stressful.
Yeah.
But also like not that stressful.
So just to recap, so literally the person you'd booked to come in to do that dropped out like last minute and you had to fill in, or
no, so it actually we actually did the whole shoot.
Oh right,
like
okay,
about 2 months before.
Right. Yeah,
and then it didn't get like shown. So then we just decided to like, because we wanted to show it.
Yeah.
So we decided to just do it again.
So just jumping a little deeper into that, because you've got a little time-lapse video on your Instagram of you doing the makeup. So just for our listeners, can you just talk through the process of what you actually did to Sarah on that particular day?
So Prosade cream glue, you put it on the areas that you want. And I bought this like real yak hair, I think. And I straighten it and I prep it and I mix the colour so it looks more real, and then I cut it to the right length, and I basically just like push the hair upwards in an upwards motion so it actually looks like it's coming from the skin. So you have to start from the bottom up, because obviously if you start at the top you're going to have to be lifting the hair up to go underneath. So you start from the bottom and you basically just build the layers up, and you're pulling it off, and we just kind of map out the shape of the hair with the glue, wait for it to dry, and then you just stick it on. It's a very long process, but it looks so real in person. In person it genuinely looks like she had grown hair in all of those areas. It's always like very close and personal. I feel like I've always got like tits in my face.
Well, that was something I was going to ask about. So did you know Sarah before this? Because she did become famous as I was doing my research. There was like a big like controversy about the fact that she's got 2 different coloured eyes, and people like kicking off and saying, actually no, your eyes aren't different coloured.
Oh really?
Yeah, and they're saying that she was lying about it. There was somebody with another Instagram who basically goes through like fake celebrity things, or when they like lie or photoshopping, and they were saying that her eyes were photoshopped, and then she had to go through this whole explanation of actually no, it's dependent on the light, and when the light hits her eyes, that's how they become.
And that's really interesting, because I was right up in her grill, we were talking about it. And she was telling me how she's had it since she was young.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't pick up on anything. I think maybe I was so engrossed in like the conversation and doing my job, and I'm not one to like pick up on anything like that. But I mean, she had a blue and a brown eye, so like
we can confirm
like it's not a lie.
And I guess like in a way, because essentially if you talk about Playboy models, there's certain expectations sort of physically beyond the just
I didn't even know she was a Playboy model until I actually saw your question.
So it was part of when they rebranded back in 2016, where it became more, well, a Playboy of old, you would say, was appeal to a certain demographic of men and a certain gays, whereas they were trying to be a bit more universal in their approach of it being not so male focused and more universal in its sort of sexual appeal. The question I would say is, like, when you're dealing with somebody with that kind of physicality, what is it to like work on that human canvas, so to speak? Because obviously you've worked on different bodies before, but
like for me, I just don't care. Like anything goes. I literally don't care. I love to like meet new people, and I think it's really amazing that women can. I think more women should like be able to do shit like that. I think it's like super, and more women that don't look how she looks, you know, like have normal, completely, like, you know. So I think it's amazing. I mean, I'm not really one to judge, or I don't really like. I don't really care. I just see it. I just see it as I'm meeting this cool person who's letting me do this, and we can talk. And I actually find that makeup for me is, I really enjoy it, because the conversations that I have are really cool. And it's always something different. So I get more tits out for me.
So I just wanted, just following nicely on from that question, you also turned Megan Thee Stallion into a hot girl panther. Is there an added pressure working so intimately with such a high profile rap star? And also, if you want to get the tea on set, it's normally the hair and makeup people who have it. So you have to be quite, what's the word? Discreet, I guess. Yeah,
it is actually really funny that you say that, but it is true, because you're right up in their face, and like shit just comes out. But I wouldn't say that I mean, of course there is added pressure, and like I do feel like you have to have so much inner confidence to just absolutely own it, know that you're going to do a good job. And a lot of the time, it's not. I'm not saying I fake it till I make it. I know how to do it, but maybe I've never worked with such a high profile star before or that many times. So going into that, I could be so nervous, and I could be like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. What if I do something wrong, or what if she doesn't like it? But I think that was a really big test for me. I just turned up. I got there at 6 p.m. and I actually started. I was told that I was going to start working at 6:10, and I started working at 11 p.m. So I was hanging around.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah, I was hanging around for like 5 hours.
Wow.
But then she was so nice.
Yeah.
And I was showing her my Krampus and everything, and it was just. And I think if you go into, if you go in with the attitude of like, everyone's normal, I'm normal, we can chat, we're both women here, like, and I think if you go in with that attitude and there's no like classes,
right,
then it's not scary. And do you know what, I always say, I have this thing that I don't think that, I'm saying she's very talented, but I'm saying that with my nerves, I'm so much more intimidated by talent than celebrities. So like,
right,
I don't necessarily think, I mean, this isn't on Megan's sense, but I'm saying in a celebrity sense, I don't think that lots of celebrities are the ones with all the talent. I think it's like people that all I'm saying is, I don't think that every celebrity has the most talent. So I think if people were celebrities because of their talent, it would be so much better. Yeah. So I just think, so I don't really get intimidated by a celeb as such, because I'm like, we're all the same thing. You know, if I was a celeb for my talent, like, I'd be much more famous. Do you know what I mean? And so would all my friends. So yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a very unfair question now. What's been the biggest makeup fail you've made on set, and how did you fix it in time?
This is a hard one. I mean, I've never had like a full-blown disaster. But actually, what's just sprung to my mind is when I was working for a Marvel, the beginning of last year, and it was my second week there, and there was a head painter, and I'd been like, please can I get into painting, because I'd been doing sculpting and I wanted to try painting. Like, please can I get into painting, I really want to try it, I'm really good, all of this. I was just chatting shit, like right. Sorry, I was I'm really good, all of this. And so then they put me with the head painter, and we got set this job, and they were like, right, and they're really strict. They're like, you've got 1 day to do 14 hands, and these were the hands for the Ant-Man.
Oh right, okay.
So we had to paint all the veins and everything. They're like, and basically, like, the head painter had a complete meltdown and left and walked out in a huff, and I was left with the whole job to do by myself.
Wow.
Yeah, it was actually crazy. It was, and I was like, I'd never done this before. I'd never even worked with the materials, but I just literally got into the state of like, have to do this, have to finish this. Each one needs to be finished every half an hour, and I did it. Yeah. And they were like really impressed with that. And then he walked in the next day and was like, sorry for walking out, and I was like, wow. Yeah. So it was stressful. But lots of stuff like that happens. I feel like you've just got to learn to
roll with it. Yeah.
You got to have a tough skin.
Yeah, it is. It's such a for an industry so full of confidence. There's a lot of like thin skins, I guess, and also like pressures that people are put under, especially in the fashion industry. It's literally working oil rigger hours.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
For like nothing, to get to that very, very small top part where you're somewhat in control.
Yeah, I think that's why you need to tap into your intuitive and think of how you can get there without getting sucked into the system. I think. Think outside the box, I think. Yeah,
definitely. So for you, what's more creatively satisfying, working to a detailed client brief or working with a performer or director on something that's not even been thought about before?
Oh, I don't know. Working...
Yeah, so essentially, I was talking to a copywriter recently, and he said to me that he likes when he gets a very detailed brief because he knows exactly what he needs to do.
Right.
Whereas other times where you're given a very laissez-faire, very loose sort of brief, you're like, what am I supposed to do?
Defo loose.
Yeah.
Defo loose. Like, I find like I probably won't even take a job if it's really detailed. And,
okay, interesting.
Just because. I mean, of course, if I needed the money and everything, I would. But I find, and if it was maybe makeup, I would. But in terms of costume, I'm going to spend, like a month making this costume, and like I won't want to put it on my Instagram. I always think if I don't want to put it on my Instagram, then I know it sounds awful, but it's essentially your website. And if you're not proud to show it, then I try to avoid that, because I just think, especially at my age, when I'm trying to build my career, trying to build my myself, and I've spent 2 years like really like channeling exactly with the path that I want to go down. So I really love to work on a brief where I can just work with the artist. Like, I think this year has been really amazing. I've had like 5 projects where an artist, and they've all been from America, which is really interesting. So it's always been like FaceTime calls. But when an artist is like, I want you to do your thing because I can see your vibe. I just want maybe 3 words, like a helmet, old, and rusty. But that's really basic. But like, I really like that because it's just, I can just do whatever I want. And I guess that's what people are like here for. Is they came to me because they want to see my creative ideas. So yeah, I'd say definitely not.
So was one of the recent ones you did, was it Jockstrap Music, or was that something you worked with them?
That was makeup for Jockstrap. And that was pretty much up to me, but it was just it was like a feral pixie transformation, which I found really fun. But that's I mean, I'd say it's creative, but it was more of a really fun thing to work with Jockstrap on, and it was really fun. I went to his family home, and like and it was really funny. He was like in his nan's house with his feral pixie transformation. I was eating his nan's cake, and it was just like really like a funny thing.
And is there anything in particular when you work with someone like him, that does he bring certain certain items, certain like points of reference for you to look over?
No. So what normally happens is someone will approach me with an idea, and I'll just say, let me get some mood boards together for you. Sketch a bit, show you some references, and then I pitch them my idea, and we go from there. So I'd say like it's very much, they begin with just describing with a few words, or maybe a photography mood board or something, and then I work from that, and then maybe we'll have a conversation after that, and that's kind of how it works. It's very like a back and forth conversation, but they kind of trust my vision. So I'd say. And
is that process initially started through Instagram? Do they contact you through Instagram or through other websites or other professional avenues?
Instagram only. I feel like I'm talking like, I just want to say that this is my dream scenario of being able to work. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that. I don't want to sound like really cocky, like this is how I work. But if I have a good project, that's how I love it to work. But yeah, they contact me through Instagram. So it's a shame because sometimes I just want to switch off my Instagram, and if I do, I might miss something. And it's like sifting through things. It is like a full-time admin job of like always looking and seeing maybe someone who liked your work, messaging them. So it is really hard, like very hard.
And then I think we spoke about just before the interview, your Mud Queen's Instagram profile. Could you talk a little bit like that and how that's impacted your career so far? I think Mud Queen's has really like impacted my career in a good way. I started it about 7 months ago, and this was literally, I was just doing costume, and I've always been like the person that all my friends come to before a night out, and like my mum comes to my all my friends, and I was like, please can I do this weird look on you, and they're all like, yeah, go for it. And then they would all be going to the party looking like
at like literal gorge, and then
Yeah.
I've got like 10 minutes to try and throw on a bit of eyeliner. So I was just like,
Yeah.
I love doing makeup, and like SFX, and I worked on it in Marvel, so I just thought like, why would I not?
Yeah.
And it was, I've thought about merging my mug queens with my normal,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to do it until I feel like it's really, really valid to do it. But mug queens has really opened lots of doors for me as well. So
Could you talk a little bit about like serving some looks? So the one that I looked at most recently, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, was Anime Gore.
oh yeah, anime. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about that, and maybe explain to the listeners what that's about?
Okay, so Anime Girl is I saw pictures on a form of social media, I can't remember what, I think it was TikTok, of this stunning guy who had anime makeup on, and literally it was like, when I say it was a 20-minute makeup where me and my friend Yaz, we were going to see our friend Salvia perform in like this pub in Camden, and me and Yaz always pull looks with 10 minutes to go. We're like, what should we do? Quickly, let's just throw something blue on our head and like run out. And I just decided to do an anime look.
Right.
And it turned out so much better than I thought. And then like it got such a good reception that I filmed it again and did it like properly. So it was basically a really spur of the moment. And I love like transformative illusion.
Right.
That's definitely something that I want to get into more for Halloween.
Yeah,
and I've actually got some really fun Halloween shoots planned, so you'll be seeing more of that.
Nice. And just sort of picking up a little bit, your friend Yaz, who also has had a very significant placement with her final show dress that's ended up on Bjork's latest album cover, I believe. Like it's everywhere at the moment.
I know, she didn't even, so she obviously gave the dress, and she didn't even know that it was on a billboard until someone sent her it, which is crazy, because she should be the first one who's tagged and the first one who sees it. And that's like the crazy thing about this industry, is not a lot of amazing designers like her get credited for the thing that is the literal showstopper, you know? Me and her actually lived together last year, and it was such a nice like environment, so she'd be doing her thing, and I actually helped her on a bit of her final collection, and then she gave me the opportunity to do the makeup for her show, so it was really nice to like collab in that aspect, because we've been best friends since we were like 11, so it's like it was a really, really like full circle moment.
Nice
to be a part of.
So I just want to quickly move on to topic 4, which is industry thoughts. So we spoke a little bit briefly about it, but I feel like Instagram and social media is a bit of a double-edged sword for young creative women who use their bodies as a canvas for their fashion, design and artwork, because inherently it's viewed as sexual and banned. So what's your experience been like of that?
Okay, so I think originally my opinion was really frustrated that the only way, this is very much like 3 years ago or so, when I first started to post my creative work in a serious way, and it was just not getting the feedback that my pictures of me would get, you know, because I came from, I went to school in a small town in the countryside where it was very just like right wing, like, you know, just, I mean, it was full of cool people too, but it was very much like the hot girls were the hot shit on Instagram, and like, you know, you follow them and you like their pictures, and everyone and it was just very like an unhealthy way of living. And I think like when I actually left to London and I moved out of that space and I started to become the person who I actually wanted to be, rather than got forced into being, you know, in your teen years, you're trying to like impress, you're trying to grow and impress and know who you are. So then like when I was coming out of that and I was starting to post my real work and it wouldn't get any likes, and I was just like, what the fuck? What is... Sorry, I'm not allowed to swear.
No, it's fine.
I was like, what is wrong with people? Like, why do you want to just see the same photos of girls, you know.
Yeah.
There's just so, but now, and then I kind of got past that level where in lockdown I started to get loads of followers that were following me for what I wanted them to follow.
Yeah.
Because I was actually spending time, and the Krampus really like got me a lot of followers that really were interested in my work. So now I kind of think, and I've kind of gone the opposite way. I'm like if I've got it, flaunt it. If you want to do that, do it. And I think now more of my followers are queer, which is amazing, and it makes me feel like it's a safer environment anyway. So most of the time, if I was to post my work with my body showing, they'd be like, "Yes, girl," like, you know, and they would praise that. And then you get the odd like boy from year 10 like it, and I'm like, well, that's cool, but like I don't really care anymore. So, but I do hate Instagram as well. So.
Yeah, that's why I feel like Instagram, like, it gives you an opportunity to connect and create and meet people, but conversely, there's this whole other side of things, and also the censorship side of things. How can somebody who's promoting an OnlyFans be the equivalent for somebody who's experimenting, with a suit of armour, an erotic suit of armour? How are they in the same sort of bracket? How are they viewed as the same thing? Then they're not. They're two just separate things.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's got their hustle. Like, I would never like put someone down if they wanted to start an OnlyFans.
Oh yeah, me neither.
You know, it's like it's a different hustle, but it's still a hustle, and it is what it is. You know.
Yeah. But
I think I like to be like given applause for my work. I genuinely don't post that many pictures of me anymore, because I don't want to get likes because of that. I just want to be more of a business. You know.
So just moving on, what is the one thing you would change about the mainstream fashion industry, and why?
Oh God, this is a hard question. I think it's hard for me because I don't really particularly look to the fashion industry a lot. I don't actually I don't try and take inspiration from the fashion world, because I take inspiration from like film.
Right.
But I would say that loads of my friends are in the fashion industry, and I am caught up in it as well. So I'd probably say the concept of like everyone seeing everything. Right. And like inspiration being copied from Shein, from this incredible designer, you know, like massive warehouses copying younger artists. And I just think the rip-off that is like interning for 2 years and not getting paid, and it's like, what do you expect these, like, no one has a lot of money in London unless you're in another bag, but like how do you expect like a 20-year-old to intern for 2 years and afford it? You know, I'm all for like interning. I've done my fair share of interning, but like I think some people can take the piss a bit. And these young designers, they're so hungry and full of life that they'll just do it. Because they want the and it's like, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is nuts.
So I think that definitely.
So I know you've made avant-garde handbags, shoes and clothing and accessories made from algae in the past. Do you think algae is the future of sustainable fashion and clothing?
I mean, I definitely think it's like a stunning thing that you can use to make art. And I'm actually thinking about getting back into it with my bags. And it was what I used for my first monster costume to make all the. I did these like crazy venom dripping hands and venom dripping feet, and it was made from algae. Right. Okay. And I actually really loved it, but I have really bad eczema. Right. And I just find the fumes were like too much for my skin. Here and there it's fine, but for me solely it's not the future of the. I see. But I do think algae could be fine-tuned into a point where it could be a really cool sauce. Right. But then I haven't looked at it on a wide scale. I literally picked it from a mini horse trough. Yeah. A horse trough. When I lived in the countryside, I would go and take it from the horse's trough, because they clean it out anyway. Because it gets in the way. And I'd come home with this bag of algae, only like the size of like 10 centimeters squared, maybe. And I'd wash it, bleach it, and then freeze it. Right. And then I'd take it out as I need, because otherwise it smells. Right. And then you encase it in the resin. Oh, okay, right, interesting. So, I mean, like, it was a really fun process for me to get into, and I loved the way it looks, so... It was really cool.
I just went to this CMS exhibition just around the corner, and Stella McCartney is showcasing leather goods made from mycelium, which is mushrooms.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, so it is people
like mycelium.
Yeah, mycelium, that's the one.
Yes,
yeah, mycelium.
yeah.
And I touched it, and it does feel like leather. Like it does generally feel like.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Mushroom leather's really a big thing, and also fruit leather.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of fruit leather.
Yeah, I learnt about it when I was doing my textiles. Fruit leather, mushroom leather. There was loads of really cool things.
So again, like just very quickly moving on, as a young British creative hit with yet another financial crisis, are you optimistic about the future of the art and design industry in the UK over the next 10 years or so?
I would say half and half.
Okay.
I would say that I am optimistic, but also prices are like insane at the moment, and I do know like a lot of my friends, young incredible creatives, not getting paid. People not getting the credit for their work. People not being able to afford London. So I just think honestly for the future it isn't in London. Maybe I think
interesting.
I think we should like travel more and actually stop settling for this life of London. The world's a lot, like I feel like life's a lot more than that, and we shouldn't, because I did that. I wanted to be in London. I wanted to be this designer in London, and then I just realized like, wow, that is so not what is right for me actually. And I'm not going to be like sucked into this game of give all your money to these people and you don't get anything back. You just rent somewhere and then you lose all your money that you've worked for, you know? So I'd say like here and there, yes and no. I do like coming to London, but...
So finally, what is your dream project if money and time wasn't an object?
Oh, God. I always say that one of my dream things would be to like start... I kind of see this in the future of something I want to do is to like start some sort of company or industry or school where I can like teach kids for free, to teach them to do like ceramics and teach them maybe something to do with like mental health, and getting I think like in terms of, I don't have any like celeb that I'm going to say that I really want to work with, because there's probably a few, but in terms of like my soul, I feel like I really want to help people, and I'd love to be able to like have enough money to not worry about that. And I'd love to help young kids be more feel like art and creativity is more of a thing that you can pursue. Right. And also I'd love to go and live somewhere with all my friends and create like a industry where we can all work, and like kind of like the midsummer place, you know, when they all kind of live in that place. I'd love to create like a warehouse space for all my friends where we all live there and it's good vibes, and
and lastly, where can people check out your 3D design, prosthetics, makeup and fashion work, and follow you on social media?
So you can follow me on social media on Instagram at Tilda, so it's TILDA_X_. And then you can also follow me on Instagram on Mug Queens, which is more makeup, on Mug_Queens. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been my absolute pleasure.
Voices Radio.
Voices Radio. Voices Radio.
Voices
Radio.
Radio.